Law 22. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power teaches a profound and paradoxical truth about the nature of power. Sometimes, the greatest victory comes from apparent defeat. In a world where aggression, dominance, and force are often seen as the ultimate expressions of power, the idea of surrender may seem counterintuitive. But this law reveals that surrender, when used strategically, can be an act of ultimate strength. By choosing to retreat or yield in the face of overwhelming force, you preserve your energy, bide your time, and wait for the moment when the balance of power shifts in your favor. At the heart of this law is a recognition that direct confrontation is not always the best path to victory. When faced with a superior force, whether it's a stronger opponent, an organization with more resources, or circumstances beyond your control, attempting to fight head-on is likely to result in destruction. The wise strategist knows when to resist and when to give way. By appearing to yield, you disarm your opponent and lull them into a sense of complacency, all while maintaining your core strength and preparing for future opportunities. Surrendering, in this sense, is not about giving up. It is about choosing your battles carefully. You may lose a skirmish, but by retreating strategically, you live to fight another day. This tactic has been employed throughout history by military leaders, political figures, and business titans who understood that true power comes from the ability to adapt, survive, and outlast your enemies. When you refuse to engage in a losing battle, you preserve your resources, maintain your resilience, and keep your options open for future retaliation or resurgence. The act of surrender can also create a psychological advantage. Most people, when they see an adversary surrender, assume that the conflict is over. They often believe they have won decisively, which leads them to relax their vigilance. This is precisely the moment when they are most vulnerable. By feigning defeat, you invite overconfidence in your opponent, setting the stage for a counterattack when they least expect it. Surrender becomes a form of psychological warfare, allowing you to control the narrative of the battle even as you appear to be losing it. This law also highlights the importance of perception. The way you present your surrender can dramatically shape the outcome. If you make your surrender seem complete and genuine, your enemies will believe they have triumphed. However, beneath this appearance of capitulation, you are regrouping, strengthening your position, and gathering intelligence on your adversary. Surrender in this context is not about weakness, but about controlling the flow of power. You give the illusion of defeat, but you are in fact orchestrating your next move. In personal relationships, business negotiations, and even in social dynamics, surrendering can be an effective way to disarm opponents and remove tension. When someone expects a conflict and you offer no resistance, they are often caught off guard. Their aggressive stance becomes unnecessary, and they may lower their guard, mistakenly believing they have neutralized you as a threat. But surrender does not mean giving in entirely. It means stepping back for the moment, allowing the other party to feel in control, while you retain your focus on long-term gains. In some cases, surrendering can help you buy time, which is an invaluable resource in any power struggle. Time allows you to reevaluate the situation, reassess your strategy, and plan your next steps. When you surrender, you are creating a pause in the battle, a moment to breathe, regroup, and regain your composure. This is especially useful when you are in a position of weakness. Rather than fighting a losing battle and exhausting your resources, surrender allows you to retreat and return to the game later, with renewed strength and a better understanding of the battlefield. Another important aspect of this law is its application in avoiding escalation. Sometimes, when tensions rise, the best course of action is to step back and de-escalate the situation. By surrendering, or at least giving the appearance of surrender, you can defuse conflicts before they spiral out of control. This can prevent costly and unnecessary losses, whether in terms of resources, reputation, or relationships. Use surrender in the short term to prevent a greater loss in the long term. This law also taps into the power of strategic humility. When you surrender, you are signaling that you are not too proud to yield, which can be disarming to your opponent. It can also earn you sympathy or even respect from others who see your willingness to retreat as a sign of wisdom rather than cowardice. By surrendering gracefully, you can preserve your dignity and create an opportunity to rebuild your power without the stigma of defeat clinging to you. However, it is crucial to understand that surrender is not an act of permanent defeat. The goal is always to transform weakness into strength. Surrender is a temporary tactic, a strategic retreat designed to allow you to re-enter the fray with greater leverage. This is why surrender must always be calculated and intentional, never driven by panic or fear. You surrender on your own terms, with the long game in mind, knowing that you will return stronger. In many ways, this law is about the subtlety of power. Overt displays of strength are not always the most effective way to win. Power can also be exercised through patience, endurance, and the ability to control the timing of your actions. Surrendering, in this context, is a form of control. You dictate the terms of your retreat, and in doing so, you set the stage for your eventual return to power. Finally, Law 22, use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power teaches that power is fluid, and it often flows in unexpected ways. By mastering the art of surrender, you learn how to manipulate the flow of power, bending it to your will rather than fighting against it. You learn that true power lies not in never falling, but in knowing how to rise again after every fall, stronger and more resilient than before.